everything is connected. And I mean everything. Well, not everything. These 18 shows and movies that I've been able to pinpoint, they're connected. Today we are going to look at what I'm tentatively calling the Grand Comedic Universe, a fictional shared universe in which 18 of your most beloved comedies and films all exist and interact with each other. Now, this isn't going to be like other shared universe theories, like the Toby Westphalt theory or the shared Seinfeld theory or whatever. I'm not going to focus on set pieces in the background or anything like that. The only connection we're going to accept is when a character from one show definitively appears in another show, or when one show is clearly referenced or talked about in another show. But let's get to it. Our universe exists on 3 distinct levels, and we're going to begin with the third one, the middle one, the Scrubs Cougar Town verse, as I like to call it. The key to understanding this level is Ted, the bumbling suicidal lawyer from Scrubs, except that before we see him practicing medical law in California at Sacred Heart, we actually find him practicing community law in LA, acting as the legal counsel for the community watch where Hal and his son Malcolm join up. In the very first episode of Malcolm in the Middle, we also see Laverne as a nurse at the local hospital. Now, since neither of their characters are named within the show, we can consider Malcolm in the Middle to be sort of a prequel for Ted and Laverne, who would eventually move to California and begin working at Sacred Heart in Scrubs. Now, after Sacred Heart, Ted travels the world with his new girlfriend, Stephanie Gooch, but he then reveals in the season 2 finale of Cougar Town that Hooch left him for Gooch. Following that, Ted makes his way to Gulf Haven, or Cougar Town, in Florida, where he has a massive mental breakdown because of Stephanie Gooch leaving him, and he begins to see people from his old work, Sacred Heart. Cougar Town sort of becomes this mental haven for him, and as far as we know, he stays there. And since both shows are made by the same person, Bill Lawrence, he has officially confirmed that Ted in Cougar Town is the same Ted from Scrubs. Now here's where it gets kind of complicated on this level, as we journey into the life of Elliot Reed, one of the doctors at Sacred Heart. Now, throughout the course of the show, we see that she has a fair amount of mental instability and often expresses dissatisfaction with her job. And we even find out that she actually made an attempt on her own life once. Now, this is getting into a bit of speculation, but what if, after she married JD, she suffered a bit of post-mortem depression like Carla did and completely snapped? What if she moved to a different city, changed her name, and created an entirely new story for herself and met someone else, like she jokingly said she'd do over the course of the entire show? What if that actually happened? What if Elliot Reed moved from Sacred Heart to California, where she moved from California to New York, where she used her medical knowledge to get a new job, meet a new guy, and become Stella Zinman. Bam! Connected! So now that we've established that Scrubs, Cougar Town, Malcolm in the Middle, and How I Met Your Mother all exist within each other in the middle level of the comedic universe, let's dive into the lower level. In Season 9 of Scrubs, Dr. Cox asks one of his interns to go home and set my DVR to record the Big Bang Theory, thus clearly establishing the Big Bang Theory as fiction within the Scrubs Cougar Town verse. Now, in Season 2 of The Big Bang Theory, Raj discovers a new planet and is put into People magazine. While he's bragging about it in the Cheesecake Factory, he runs into Charlie from 2.5 Men, who says, "Great, tell me when you're on the cover," thus connecting those two shows. Furthermore, in the first episode of Mom, we see Charlie's brother, Alan Harper, having dinner at a restaurant and waited on by Christy Plunkett, the main character of the show. Now, since his character isn't named in that show, and both shows happen physically relatively close to each other, we can reasonably assume that Alan in Mom is Alan Harper from 2.5 Men, thus connecting all 3 shows. Now, despite the fact that they are all fiction within the Scrubs verse, they are still connected. And it becomes a bit deeper when we realize that Scrubs and Cougar Town
are in fact fiction as well, existing as fiction in the highest level of the comedic universe, the community level. The key to this is, of course, Abed, the lovable misfit of Community. We see this from two classic Abed moments. We can see the connection. One is where he's talking about Scrubs Season 9 and its relevance to the group's 5th year at Greendale. How he's talking about how Scrubs was sort of grittily rebooted and how that's all about how they're repiloting in their 5th year or 5th season at Greendale. And the second, probably the more important one, is when Abed is telling Jeff of his experiences during one of their breaks in Season 2, where he was actually invited to appear as an extra in the background of an episode of Cougar Town, his favourite show. And that actually happened. Danny Pudi makes a very obvious cameo in the background of Cougar Town and is credited as Chad, played by Abed Nadir, thus canonically linking all three shows together. But that's not all. No, this is the most expansive level of the cinematic universe, and we get another connection from yet another member of the Greendale community. When we meet Reinhold the German in Season 4, we never find out what his major is. Except that we do. It's film. How do we know this? Because Reinhold actually shows up as part of the camera crew filming the documentary that The Office centers around. Now, when we meet him in the office, he has significantly changed his accent as well as his name from Reinhold to Brian, but this is very common for foreigners trying to integrate into different countries, so we don't really need to make a thing out of it. We also see that he's developed quite a bit more empathy, as his main role seems to be to comfort Pam. But Brian turns out to be quite a significant connection in our comedic universe, as his camera crew is the same one that films the documentaries Parks and Recreation and Modern Family, as well as The Office. Connected! But even more connects these shows. If Parks and Rec and The Office exist in the same universe, then how can Ann Perkins and Karen Filippelli look identical to each other and not be related? The answer is quite simple. Throughout the run of both shows, we never find out anything about Anne or Karen's families, and both are hinted at having an ethnic background. How can this be so? Because they're the same person. Anne is Karen, and Karen is Anne. But the key to this lies in Toby Flenderson, the HR rep for the Scranton office in Dunder Mifflin. Throughout all of Season 9, Toby tells anyone who'll listen about his work as a juror on the infamous Scranton Strangler case, as well as often talking about big secrets in the case that he can't tell anyone, but that they'd be really interested about. Turns out, or rather what if, one of those secrets was that Karen testified against the Strangler, and following that was placed into protective custody and given a new name, which would explain why we never see her in the office after that point. Now, following this, we can assume that Karen got a new name, she moved cities, etc., etc., and the next time we see her, it's as Ann Perkins, the best friend of Leslie Knope, complete with a new name, backstory, and life. Connected! But, of course, there's the one show we haven't talked about in that triptych, Modern Family. And while Modern Family doesn't outwardly connect to either The Office or Parks and Rec, aside from clearly being filmed by the same camera crew, it does offer us a connection to another show. In Modern Family, we meet Gloria, the much younger wife of Jay Pritchett, who lives in comfort in his house. Before meeting Jay, however, we learn that Gloria lived in both Florida and Texas. Now, we can quite reasonably assume that throughout her time in Texas and Florida that Gloria has a son, Manny, with her. Wait, Manny? You mean the same kid who we can see watching the bagging competition somewhere in Texas in My Name is Earl? Connected! The final connection of the comedic universe lies in the background of Parks and Rec. One of the main shows in Pawnee is Ya Heard with Perd, hosted by Perd Hapley, a well-known newscaster. So well-known, in fact, that he evidently reports news all over the country before settling in Pawnee. And in the final season of Parks and Rec, we find out that he doesn't actually live in Pawnee. Now, he lives in West Virginia and he commutes every day, so we can reasonably assume that he commutes everywhere else where he reports the news. Look, here he is covering a high-profile trial in Pretty Little Liars and reporting on a prominent sex scandal in Scandal, reporting a grisly murder on Dexter, reporting the death of a firefighter in The Mentalist, reporting a prison bus crash in the opening of Fast 5, the 5th installment of the Fast and Furious universes, thus actually connecting all the Fast and Furious movies to the comedic universe. Here he is reporting on David Clarke in Revenge, reporting in Body of Proof and in The Closer. Purd even appears to be reporting on the heroics of Supergirl in National City. But since that would connect the comedic universe to the Arrowverse and bring up questions of superheroes, resurrection, and actual magic, we're going to ignore that for now. But, read into that what you will. So there you have it. 18 shows, plus movies, plus a potential DC connection, all existing within the same universe, all sharing characters, all sharing plots.
Oh yeah. Thank you for watching. To my 4 loyal viewers, thank you. I apologize for the very poor quality of production that this video went through. I'm still really getting to grips with the ropes of how to do all of this. But yeah, I had a lot of fun making it. I hope you had fun watching it. My next video is going to be all about Star Wars, and I'm really excited to do that. Until then, bye.